First time I was invited to Boston to talk about Peruvian traditional medicine was in the year 2004. I did a conference on shamanism and epigenetics, and I explained the basic principle of how we cure in the Peruvian traditional medicine. And the principle is this: if you have a receptor for a drug, it's because your body can produce that drug. So if you have a receptor for aspirin, it's because your body can produce aspirin. Because it would be silly for your body to have a receptor on something your body will never produce. And that is how we cure in the Peruvian traditional medicine. When you have a disease, it's because the system is not in balance. The number of receptors is reduced, or the receptors are not active. So we need to increase the number of receptors and at the same time activate them. How we do it? It depends of the disease. For example, a shaman, let's say that you have depression, right? You are depressed. So a shaman is going to give you coca leaf. Why? Because the 14 alkaloids in coca leaf are going to activate the receptors and increase the number of receptors in your body. Number of receptors for serotonin, for example. So now, when the receptors are active, the shaman will go into your subconscious mind using ayahuasca, chacruna, washuma, San Pedro, and reprogram your subconscious mind so you can produce these hormones, these neurotransmitters. And now that the receptors are active, the neurotransmitters can actually attach to the receptor and have an effect on your body. When I talk about this back in 2004 in Boston, everybody laughed at me. They accused me of doing pseudoscience, right? That this was no real science. However, a doctor in Israel, Dr. Raphael Miklon, in the 60s, he isolated THC and CBD from cannabis. And then he proposed this hypothesis. He says, if we have receptors for cannabis, for phytocannabinoids, it's because the body can produce endocannabinoids. Because it would be silly to have receptors for something the body will never produce. And he spent 30 years looking for the endocannabinoids. Till in the late 90s, he was able to isolate 2 endocannabinoids. And with that, he discovered the endocannabinoid system, that we have receptors for cannabis basically in every cell of our body. And that is the reason why cannabis have a systemic effect. He won the Nobel Prize, and he basically validated my theory, our theory of how we cure diseases with Peruvian traditional medicine. Now I want to explain you this. Our main enemy is the pharmaceutical companies. Just cannabis is going to replace more than 200 different medicines in use nowadays, right? So Peruvian traditional medicine can replace tons of pharmaceutical drugs that are in place nowadays. And that is the reason why they oppose. But the problem is that Western medicine usually only treats symptoms. And I'm going to give you a classic example, right? When you have an infection, you have fever, which is the symptom. And at the same time, you have the cause of the infection, which usually is a bacteria. So they give you medicine to treat the symptom, the fever. And they also give you antibiotics, right? Antibiotics to treat the infection, to kill the bacteria. That is perfect. However, let's talk about type 2 diabetes, right? Type 2 diabetes, you have high blood glucose, the symptom, and you have insulin resistance, the cause. All the medication they give you is just to treat the symptom, to decrease the blood glucose. Nobody's treating the cause, the insulin resistance. So this is what happens, right? You go to the doctor is going to put you on 500 milligrams of metformin to try to keep the symptom, the blood glucose, under control. But then he have to increase the dosage to 1,000, and then to 1,500, and then to 2,000 milligrams of metformin per day to try to keep the blood glucose under the normal levels. And then the doctor is going to tell me that the patient is under control, which doesn't make any sense, because the patient started taking 500 milligrams and now he's taking 2,000. So how can you tell me that the disease is under control? You are just controlling the symptom, but you are not addressing the cause of the disease. And the disease is actually progressing. In the Peruvian traditional medicine, yes, we try to address the symptom, but we focus is in the cause. We try to cure the disease. These diseases that they call chronic diseases, because they cannot be cured, they can only be treated, that's just BS. That is just false. They can be easily cured if you really want to cure them. You need to understand that they make money by keeping you sick. So, basically what we are trying to do is to make people aware of how Peruvian traditional medicine works, how we cure diseases, and how you can be cured. Because it is amazing to me that still we don't have a traditional Peruvian medicine school, for example. So we are trying to make a formal process of education so we can train people on Peruvian traditional medicine, and you can pass on the knowledge, because it's not just medicine what we are teaching you. You will need to understand the culture. You will need to understand our way of thinking and the way we see the world. We call our cosmovision. If you don't understand our cosmovision, you won't understand how we cure diseases. And that is my goal. As I always said, the goal is not to make money. The goal is to pass on a legacy so you can be cured.